Black Tie Optional is a podcast about people who have figured out how to make a great living doing what they love. We share stories about the highs, the lows, and what pushes them daily to achieve their dreams. My name is Philip Benz, and welcome to Black Tie Optional. All right, man. How's it going?
Good. Great. It's a bright, semi-early morning.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, we are getting there. I typically get started pretty early. My daughter and I both slept in this morning, so she was late for school. I was late here, but
there you go.
Good. Turned into a good day.
That all worked out. Well, this is my first time actually officially meeting you. We've talked for a little bit while I was setting up for the podcast. But for those who don't know you, what's your name? What do you do? Where are you from? Sure. Tell me all of that stuff.
Yeah, my name is Luke Owens, and I was born in Raleigh. Grew up most of my life here in Greenville. Moved back to Raleigh in 2010, worked and lived there. Girlfriend at the time, wife now. We lived there for about 7 years. She was working in her major, being interior design. And before we moved there, she'd graduated with that. And I was cooking all in and out of Raleigh, figuring out who I wanted to learn from and where I wanted to be and what kind of cuisine I wanted to focus on, and just kind of finding what my personal style and brand was going to be as far as cooking. We stayed there until I took the job at Boiler Room and Chef and the Farmer in Kinston in 2015, late 2015, I believe, early 16. So yeah, born there, grew up here, moved back there, and then back here. So I've moved around a lot, but just between two places.
Right. Yeah, so I guess you didn't have to go too far to move around those places.
I did some other traveling and cooking, but those are the two cities I've lived in.
Now, when you were a kid, did you enjoy cooking, or did you just find this kind of in your early adulthood?
I'm told I did. My mom tells me that I liked to cook a lot when I was little, and I do remember that to some extent. I think it really, career-wise, came out of, the short of it is I was in school here, and wanted money to spend, right? So it really started, I had to get a worker's permit when I started cooking. First place I worked was a little grill in Winterville. It was called Ken's Grill, and it was in a Food Line shopping center. The Food Line in Winterville still, it was the end cap all the way to the right if you're looking at it. And my buddy's dad owned it, and he let me wash dishes and flip burgers. Had to get a worker's permit. It was like 14, just for money. Right. And then got more serious about it as I had to support myself after high school, and was in school for a stint, and then was really drawn to it more career-wise when I realized there was a sense of consistency to cooking and to kitchens, which is not something I grew up with. I didn't grow up with a ton of consistency just in general. With a split household and other things going on early in life, it wasn't very consistent for me. So I found something that was, and I was really drawn to it. And then I put all of my time and energy and focus into that, and found that I did have a talent and I did have a knack for it, and I did enjoy it, and it did make money. So I really poured into that pretty heavily at that point.
When you watch these cooking shows and you actually really focus in on the cooking side of it, the culinary side of it, at the end of the day, it's an art. And the problem with a lot of artists is that we procrastinate a lot, but I don't feel like in your industry you can procrastinate, because you have to have everything prepped and ready to go in order to make what you're making. How do you deal with stuff like that?
Really great teams. Yeah. Hiring to weaknesses. So I feel like a lot of people, no matter what career you're in or just life in general, tend to focus on strengths, which is great, but you never get to perfect your weakness, if that makes sense. So being able to find like-minded individuals or artists, like you said, that kind of have the same end goal, and build a team around relationships and not just generating revenue, but long-term relationships with the team that you're building, is really what gets food on the plate day after day. People showing up, and me just being able to kind of carve a pathway as a leader or as a restaurant owner. This is where we're trying to be or trying to get, and how do we get there quickly, efficiently, and without breaking the spirits of anybody, essentially, because it is a cutthroat industry, honestly. And like you said, if you're procrastinating, you will not be first. You will not be recognized before the guy or girl down the street. You will not get the notoriety you're after if you're procrastinating. You have to show up mentally, physically, emotionally, daily, and lead your teams and pour into those people and believe in them and believe in yourself and what you're trying to accomplish. Or you probably are procrastinating if you're not doing those things.
The trust side of things, I'm sure, was probably hard in the beginning because, I mean, you're learning and you're kind of on your own at that point. But then in order to get to the scale you're at right now, which we haven't even gotten into, the 2 restaurants that you guys have here in town, but the trust factor, I'm sure, is crucial when it comes to trying to do an operation like you're doing.
Yeah.
You have a team that you have to trust and all that stuff.
Yeah, I think it goes back to relationships. And of course, when you meet new cooks or young chefs or whatever, I don't want to say it's hard to trust them. I mean, you have to, you got to put food in people's hands to see what they're going to do with it, or if they can follow direction, or if they can cut something the way that you showed them. And I mean, I guess, yeah, it's kind of hard to hand over some trust sometimes, but you can't do it alone. And I'll be the first one to say that. I can't, and I definitely haven't done any of this alone without an immense amount of help and support. So, I mean, I think you just got to go all in and trust that people are showing up to do what they say they're showing up to do, and then adjust if it's not how I want it, or if it's not the feeling that we're going for, or if it feels rushed or stressed. You just reevaluate and you just figure it out with that team that you've hired for other people to trust too. That's something we preach a lot, is we put people in the positions that we trust them in, and you have to give everyone a chance to be successful. You gotta give it a shot at least.
You said something earlier, and I did another podcast episode with a guest, and he was like, a lot of times your weaknesses end up becoming your strengths. What was some of the pitfalls that you experienced while opening these restaurants, and stuff like that, stuff that you had to overcome to, kind of look at the back burner now?
Yeah, I think a lot of that came with, I'm never overly concerned about the food. We didn't write our menu here at Native until the week that we were opening, just because I do kind of like to live in the moment a little bit, and what's available to me now, and what does the market look like? What are market prices on fish? What are market prices on produce? Is it sustainable for the next 6 weeks? Can I write a menu with these things and assume that they're going to be there in whatever amount of time? So the food, those are some of the stressors on writing the menu. I think some of the bigger ones were the space. This building is over 100 years old. So there's a lot we didn't know about it until we dumped a ton of money into it, hoping that it was going to turn into what you see today.
And you're at a point where you can't turn around at that point.
No, at that point, we signed a lease. We wanted to snatch this place up. It's the building that we wanted. I saw it and immediately fell in love with it, even though it was dilapidated and boarded up, had no floors. I saw all of this, that we're sitting in. I saw its potential, and my wife certainly did too. And she's a designer, and she's like, there's so many things you can do here, but she is really good at letting the space kind of dictate what it wants to be, if that makes sense. And you're an artist, and you probably get that. I think a lot of people don't. They're like, well, I want to put this concept in this space. Well, that concept in this space may not
work in that space.
It might not work. I think that things have souls. I think this building is not just a building. I think there's stories here. I think there's memories here, stories and memories that I wasn't a part of, but that I can compound on. That I can, hopefully continue to help tell stories in this space. And Britt, my wife, was really, like I said, really great at just letting the space kind of tell her what it should be. And thankfully it lined up. We really wanted to do a diner. We wanted a place where you could eat breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And right now we're just doing dinner with the plan to back into lunch and breakfast as Dickinson becomes more walkable, with the streetscape and all the street renovations going on. It'll open up and become more walkable. But, we definitely wanted a place that was neighborhood-like, and where we would see the same people multiple times a week, and that was just comfortable and homey, not pretentious, and just making the food that we're all interested in today. You know, being able to have a space where we could make world food and not be bottlenecked into just, you know, I'm a Southern cook, so like, and we have a space for that. We have Julep, where I can focus on Southern stories and Southern recipes and how I grew up eating, you know, Sunday suppers after church or pig pickings, or we can focus on that there. But I also wanted a space where we could kind of do whatever we wanted and let it be a little more organic and cook food from all over the world. And I think a diner is the best way to do that, you know.
There's a super powerful photo of when we were talking about native. You have you sitting like right here of before you guys. It looks like even before you guys even tore anything up. And
that's how we found it.
And that's how I noticed that the ceilings were original. Because in that photo, I mean, that's the one thing that really didn't change was the ceilings. Yeah. So tell me a little bit about that photo and also just the Dickinson Avenue project that they have going on. Tell me a little bit about that.
The photo, I don't remember. I know we've posted it. I think the restaurant page posted it recently to show what it looks like now compared to then. But I think that original post was about, I'd have to go back and look, but I think it was about like growth.
It was a deep photo.
And yeah, and how growth is not comfortable. And if we're living in a space of comfort all the time, we're probably stagnant. We're probably not growing. We're not pushing ourselves. We're not expanding our minds or our talents or our ability. You know, so I try to live a little uncomfortable all the time. And I think that is what that post was about originally, is that this looks like an impossible...
Let's say a lost cause.
Right.
Yeah.
It's had its day. It's gone. It's not coming back. But I just didn't believe that when I saw it. And had to, I don't want to say convince, but I mean, I think I had to convince a team of partners and investors and people that we, you know, now are great friends and are working with daily, that it wasn't a lost cause, you know.
And looking at it now, I mean, clearly, you guys made the right decision for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, tell me a little bit about the restaurant stuff. So you have Julep, you have Native. When did you decide when you were, it was the head chef at Chef and the Farmer, correct? Mm-hmm. So when did you decide there that you were just like, you know, I want to try and go out on my own? Was that like a difficult process to leave one path and go to another?
Yeah, it was real scary. Because when you're employed, you have a sense of, you're being provided for.
Stability.
As long as you show up and you do what your employers ask you to do, and maybe go a little above and beyond. Maybe get a raise, maybe get a bonus, but you do know that your salary is going to come through week after week, right? As long as you're doing what you were hired to do, there's stability there, comfort. So that's the scariest part of it is now I pay me, right? And there's no one else to look to. There's only one way to provide, not only for me and my family, but for a staff of collectively close to 100 people, you know, between the two restaurants. That's a huge, you know, weight. And I think that's a big part of my personal drive. I think it's a big part of our management team's drive. We have a killer management team in both places. Just people who really believe in what we're doing, and they've seen it happen in just a year's time. You know, we've set small goals in order to reach large goals. I think that's what you have to do. You can't just be after a big goal and just aimlessly shoot for that target. You have to have small goals along the way. And we have, like I said, a great team that recognizes those and they accomplish those. And then we move on to a little bit bigger of a goal until we're eventually, you know, doing things in other cities and starting nonprofits that benefit certain avenues of issues within the hospitality field. You know, those are large goals. And then we have the smaller ones on the way to those. But yeah, it was frightening. But then you see the circle of people that kind of, you know, ears perk up. They're looking at what you're doing and it's like, okay, I do see that and I do want to be a part of that. And then people kind of navigate toward your positivity. So I think just staying positive and staying adamant about, why are you in it? Because if you're in it to be wealthy, at least off the bat, get out of it, no matter what it is, in my opinion. I think anything can bring wealth. I think you can make an extreme amount of money doing almost anything you want to. But it can't be why you start, I don't think. So just good energy and a solid plan, and where are we going? How do we get there efficiently, and showing people that it's possible. And then they just kind of navigate, and we've been able to do that and been able to create really incredible teams.
How long now have you been on your own?
Since November of 2019.
2019?
Yeah. So that's when I had the conversation with the last restaurant group that I was with. And they were super supportive. And I've actually leaned a lot on them when opening these two places. Ben Knight specifically, who was, owner of Chef and the Farmer, Boiler Room, Benny's in Wilmington. And just for questions, he's guided me much of at least within the past 6 years of my career while being there, and just been a wealth of knowledge. So I've called him often, and just things that I know he would have a really strong opinion on or has a lot of experience in. So he's been super helpful. But that's, 2019, November 2019. And then we were supposed to do native first. And then 2020 hit. And the group that we were partnered with, we had a call, I think, a day or two after COVID got really weird, middle of March. I do remember it was around my birthday.
It was St. Patty's Day. We were sitting at Naughty Dog, and that's when I think the governor came over, just all right, everything shuts down after today.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you coming into the restaurant business as an owner at that time, I'm sure that was pretty gnarly to actually wrap your head around. I mean, what's some of the stuff you guys had to overcome?
So I was doing a lot of private chef work at that time. So we were focused on getting this open. Obviously, pre-March 2020, I had no idea what was about to happen. So we were hyper-focused on that, and it was looking like a 6 to 8 month build, and feeling really good about that. And I was doing private chef work and had one really, really big main client that I had kind of stopped doing other client work for everyone else. I was just focused on this one family. And then all of that happened, and have a conversation with the partners, and they're like, well, we'll leave it up to you. What do you want to do? So now I'm hit with this massive decision for the first time ever.
Balls in your court, yeah.
And they're looking to me on what we want to do. So we collectively made the decision to stop building here and to just see what was going to happen. It was maybe this is a 30-day thing and we'll pick back up. That obviously was not the case. So once we realized that, we went to our contractors and said, what can we, I know this is a hard question to answer, but what can we lock in? Pricing wise, because we have a number on this place. We know it's supposed to cost this much. We know what we have. We know we're good right now. But if things skyrocket, we're going to have to find a partner or some outside funding or whatever the case may be.
If a supply chain shortage happens, if lumber goes up.
Unforeseeable. Yeah. So thankfully, we were able to lock some of that in. But by the time we started building again, which was January 21, everything was a mess. Like you said, the supply chains and just people showing up to work in general. So people not out showing up, whether it was here or in another state where we needed supplies from, and that they have a shortage. So it's just trying to figure out how this is even going. It took us 2 years after that to get the doors open, because there's so many residual things that were happening. So in the meantime, we opened what would have been the second restaurant first. So Native was supposed to open first. And, the complications with COVID and the complications with a 100-year-old building, we were able to open one in between, or first. And that is Julep Contemporary Kitchen inside the Hilton Hotel. That's where we found our partners. And that's where we kind of got back on track. Was okay, let's lay out an 18-month plan. You know, can we flip this restaurant from what it was to what it is today? For how much? And then how much has the funding gone up for downtown? What does that look like as far as a partnership goes? So we spent a good 6 months doing work on paper rather than physically in the building, figuring out how the structure was going to work, how the management teams were going to work, what the partnership was, and for how long, what do these leases look like, and just all of the other things that are so much harder than cooking, honestly. And it has all just worked out incredibly. Again, support, prayer, you know, and just like following through with what you set out to do, you know.
All of that, you know, all that stress that you guys probably had to go through. I mean, even your wife at this point, you know, I'm sure a lot of that even got brought home. But when it comes down to it, when did it finally click? Like, we made the right call, we made the right decision. When did you finally, you know, realize with Julep, like, hey, this is working out?
I think just that Julep even came to be, if that makes sense, because we were, if you think about it, think about being, you've started a project that's $1 million, to be honest with you. You've started that, and then something huge happens globally. You don't know what you're going to do. And then after the global stuff kind of starts to pan out, someone comes in and says, hey, we want to partner up and we want to do a second restaurant and we want to make sure we get the other one finished also. I think when that happened and we had the conversation in person, because that happened via phone call, and then we met and everyone really clicked. And I think that's when the whole thing clicked. It was like, okay, at the end of the day, everything is going to be okay. But like at the end of what day? You know, is it going to be today? Is it going to be in 6 weeks? But I did have a sense of like calm and peace kind of when that partnership happened. It's like, okay, there's still something here. There's still an urge to, there's still interest.
There's still others that believe in the project.
Right. All the people that believed before are still here, plus there's more. So, and that's bigger than me. That's greater. I didn't do that. That's nothing that I did except for waking up every day and putting energy into the projects that I wanted. I didn't make that happen. It was just a part of it, you know, in my opinion. So that's when it clicked, was actually just Julep even coming up, you know, just saying, hey, we have the space. It needs to be renovated. Do you have a brand? Sure. I have 4 or 5 brands, you know, business plans written out. What is the space? Can I see it? And then, like I said earlier, let's decide what this space wants to be based on it, not based on what we want to try to wedge into it. And we saw it and kind of went through, when I say we, me and my wife, kind of went through the business plans that I had written for different concepts down the road. And Julep kind of jumped off the page. It's like, this is a Southern white tablecloth travelers type restaurant. You know, it's in a hotel. So you have single travelers, you have people coming for pharmaceutical events or corporate events or families on vacation. It's constantly rotated. So what is something that we can like root in and do simply, but all the way correct, like do it 100% correct all the time and just hyper focus on one type of cuisine. And I felt that comfort food was the way to go there, especially because that's where I have the most cooking experience. It's how I grew up. It's how I cook at home. And it just felt really comfortable all around. So Julep just coming into existence at all, or the conversation even hitting the table, to answer your question, is really when I started to become very comfortable and realize going to sleep at night, like, I feel good. It's going to be okay.
And the cool part you said that, you know, like, it's going to work, but when?
Right.
Yeah. And I mean, I guess, have you figured that out now? I mean,
It's working now.
it's working now. Yeah. I mean,
We're having a great time now. So.
Good.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes down to it, man, you mentioned earlier when you ended up leaving your former restaurant, that thankfully there was no bitterness. And there's a lot of times where, you know, if you leave and go off and do something, you know, your employer is like bitter about it, but they kind of embraced you and started mentoring you. How important is that mentorship? Because I'm sure that you have to mentor your managers, your staff. How important is that?
It's really important. There's nothing that I would hate more than for a sous chef or a GM or a bar manager or even a server, dishwasher, food runner, anybody to leave here and not feel supported, whether that's on a daily basis, going home, hey, you had a great shift. I really appreciate you tonight. Be safe getting home. We'll see you tomorrow. Like, there's that amount of support. And then there's support to where we're encouraging them to carve their own way. And like, if you want to be in this industry, and it's hard, this is not an industry for weak people. It's just not. It'll break you down, and it will corner you, and it will bite you, and it will just tear you apart if you let it, especially if you're after large things in the industry. It'll beat you up. But if they want to be here, we want them here with us as long as we can possibly have them. But I would never say you can't leave, or I'm going to be mad at you for doing better for you, because someone has to give you a chance to be successful. And that's what I want this place to be. If you want to be successful in this industry, you can come practice it here. You can come do it here, because we're already doing it. We're doing our best every day and trying to compound on that the day after. So if you want to be a part of that, please do, for as long as you want to. But when it's time for you to move on and to do something that makes your spirit happy, I want that to be my final support, and that's what I had from them coming here, was that, I think they hated to see it. Everything was good. Everything was going great. But it was just for me and for my family, and they were always super supportive. And even to this day, Ben just had dinner here 3 or 4 nights ago, and it's a relationship that I will have forever. And he's been supportive to the point of where he comes in here and he eats with his kids, and he calls me, and he, offers any kind of guidance or support or whatever. And that's what we want to do too. We want the best for all people in their personal lives. And if they want to spend time with us here, we'll have them as long as they want to be here. Yeah.
What advice do you give to people that want to go out and open a restaurant, or even to the smaller scale, open a food truck, start doing something culinary? What advice do you give to them?
Go all in. Like, just don't even. There's going to be fears, right? But like, don't be bigger than them, and know that, like I said earlier, at the end of the day, at the end of some day, it's gonna, as long as your energy's there and your focus is there and you're pushing on what you want, you're going to be rewarded for that. That hard work is going to pay off. So just go ahead and go all in on it. Don't be afraid of it, and surround yourself with people who are as good or better than you at what you're trying to do, and who have experience and who have knowledge. And don't be cocky. Don't be afraid to not know something. I think that's something we run into a lot in this industry, is someone will, say, I need you to do this thing. And then you find someone in the corner Googling what that thing is and how to do it, out of fear that someone's going to be mad that they didn't know what that was. But like, we don't care. I don't care that you don't know what something is. Like, we can get there together, and that fulfills me as a leader, and it fulfills you because now you know a new task, or a new talent, or you know how to do something today that you didn't know how to do yesterday. So surround yourself with people who are willing to like show you what they know, but also like not say that their way is the only right way. There's a million ways to do something correct, right? So like, always be learning, soaking in any kind of knowledge that you possibly can, getting quiet and still, and just seeing what the people who are already successful around you have done to be there, and they want you there to give that knowledge to you. Just soak up as much as you possibly can from whoever you can,
What's been the most fulfilling experience so far with going out on your own, opening up Julep, watching that grow, now having Native, watching this grow? What's been the most fulfilling experience?
Providing for other people, having a place that people can depend on. And I'm speaking on my employees and the teams that we work with right now, not just the public, like not just giving a restaurant to the public as a service to, hey, there's this new hip, cool, fun restaurant, and it's for you, and once you enjoy it, that's all great too. But I think more so being able to be dependent upon for other people. it's kind of like at Christmas. Like, I like to give presents. I think it's awesome to get them too. But like, I love to give presents to other people. And, that just, I think, is the most rewarding for me. It makes me feel like I have done something that impacts someone on a daily basis, and that they can depend on me to show up for them, and that the door is going to be unlocked when they get here, and that they are going to have a job as long as they're doing it. And, just creating relationships for other people, I think, has been the most rewarding.
Awesome, man. Last question for you before we wrap this thing up. But, I want you to think back to when you first got into cooking and, creating these dishes. Is there anything that you would change back then to where you are now?
Sure. Yeah, I'd change a lot of things. I think the person I was just saying to not be when opening or trying to do something for yourself, I think I was that person, and that's something I would take my own advice, if that makes sense. I would soak up more information. I would ask more questions. I would be more quiet, and I would listen to people who have much more experience. I think I did a good job of that, but that I think I could have done better, but you don't know that when you're in it. I would like to think that most people are trying to do their best at all times, and that people are mostly good, and they're trying to be good, and they're trying to be better. So you don't really realize that you're putting those like fake walls up at a different time of your life, right? So like, looking back, I think I would just take my own advice and just, like I said, get quiet and still and soak up information, and just surround myself more than I did with people who I look up to, and who were doing it correctly. I would go a little more all in than I did, if that makes sense.
Beautiful answer. Beautiful answer. Where can people find you? Where's your restaurants, social media? Where can we find you?
Sure. Julep is at 207B Southwest Greenville Boulevard. Native is 907 Dickinson Avenue. They're only about 10 minutes apart from each other. And our socials, my personal social is foodfootage_Luke.Owens. We have Eat at Native and Eat at Julep, both on Instagram, and then just the restaurant names under Facebook.
Cool. And this is all located in Greenville, North Carolina.
That's right.
Awesome, man. I appreciate it. It's been a pleasure talking to you.
Same.
I hope you guys enjoyed this episode, and thanks so much for watching. For more on Black Tie Optional, subscribe on YouTube by hitting the notification bell or follow us on social media. Black Tie Optional also streams across all podcast platforms, so the next time you're in the car or at the gym, look us up by typing in Black Tie Optional Podcast. Again, thanks so much for watching and listening, and until next time, stay motivated.